Good evening, I'm Graham Kennedy. John Mangos and I bring you the news, coast to coast. John, is there any news fit to see on this Monday evening, the 10th day of April, 1989?
Graham, tonight, wage rises promised, but the average worker still not expected to be better off after Wednesday's economic statement. And a typical Melbourne welcome for Australia's king of television.
And we're in Melbourne tonight. You know, son, there is something. Thank you. There's something about Melbourne. It's easy to understand. It's not easy to understand why the lights are on in the audience, but one word from him. No, it's easy to understand why there have been so many beautiful poems written about the capital of Victoria.
I didn't know that our hometown had been put into verse.
Yes, see, John comes from Melbourne too. Oh, it has, yes. Oh, yes.
Let's have an example.
Of a Melbourne poem? Yes. There was a young girl from St Kilda who went for a drive with a builder. She said that he could, that he should, and he would, so he did, and he bloody near killed her.
From the vast resources of the Nine Network's news-gathering facilities, here is the up-to-the-minute news of the day. In our newsroom...
Who is it tonight?
Let's slow right down, because the music's just come in.
Do you think it's Ian Ross, or Sandra Falloon, or is it George Danikian?
Graham, John, emergency services in Sydney are tonight at the scene of a mysterious chemical scare on one of the city's wharves. 4 people were taken to hospital after inhaling what are believed to be toxic fumes from a load of chemicals on board a visiting cargo ship. Fire brigade officers have so far been unable to pinpoint the suspected leak and are still at the scene. Treasurer Keating has angrily denied warnings that home loan interest rates could reach 18% by the end of the year. Citibank says the $60 a week wage and tax package approved today by Cabinet could fuel our already overheated economy and drive interest rates even higher. But Mr Keating is firmly sticking to the plan.
We're the only party in Australia capable of running wages policy. And that means, therefore, we're the only party capable of running the Australian economy.
Meanwhile, the Bond organisation has been given a grilling by a federal parliamentary committee over its alleged use of the Cook Islands as a tax haven.
It seems to the man in the street, at least, that Bondi's pulling a swifty here, and while they're paying their PAYE tax, it seems that one of our largest corporate citizens on its income is paying peanuts.
But a Bond spokesman said the corporation will pay tax when it eventually brings the foreign-earned profits to Australia. Melbourne's eastern suburbs are cleaning up after violent thunderstorms caused severe flash flooding. Up to 70 millimetres of rain was dumped in just 2 hours on areas at the foot of the Dandenong Ranges. Lightning strikes also blacked out power to hundreds of homes and shops. But most Melburnians were totally unaware of the problem. Elsewhere in the city, there was no rain at all. And finally, Brisbane's water police have had the unusual experience of being involved in an aerial chase when their cockatoo mascot Hazel escaped and flew into a tree. After calling on all available manpower, including the fire brigade, Hazel was eventually caught after 20 hours. Police are now considering laying charges.
She'll be disciplined when she gets back.
I see. Have her wings clipped, so to speak.
Something like that.
That's all for now from the newsroom. I'll be back with a little more later in the show.
Now a remarkable coast-to-coast exclusive, a story that just had to be told. How Graham and I came to be in Melbourne tonight to bring you this very show. A journey for us that began 2 days ago. It was all aboard on the Melbourne Express for the trip down. We don't quite know why they call it that, because it does in fact make 6 stops along the way. The special commissioner's carriage you're about to see now was attached to the train at Sydney's Central Station for our exclusive use. Here we go. The master suite was quite a bit roomier than the sleepers that other people use, including co-hosts. There's mine, look at that. This is Dennis, our chef for the evening. Dennis prepared a splendid meal of Chateaubriand, which was complemented by some superb Australian wines. After a quick sip there you see, to calm the nerves, we were on our way, yes, 13 hours of
Blankety blanks, blankety blanks, blankety blanks, blankety blanks.
Yesterday morning, our time at 9 o'clock, we were here in Melbourne at Spencer Street Station. Yes, here we are waving away. Look, 13 hours of blankety blanks.
Isn't that terrific?
And we're not in Melbourne yet, but we're just arriving by the looks of
like
things.
home
Here we go.
movies.
Look, there's a crowd of railway workers to greet us.
Yes.
Moments later, the King was back on his home turf. Not to be disappointed by his return, Melbourne turned on some traditional drizzle. Not that that made any difference, because a royal hangover had already dampened the senses. My dear King.
Oh, wasn't that so? It's like home movies.
There you go.
When you play home and you talk over. That was really boring, son.
Did we kill him?
I don't know
It was
about
good
that.
fun for our
I
age.
hadn't taken the train for ages. Wasn't it fun, though?
Oh, it was great. I enjoyed it, yes.
No sleep. You can't sleep a wink, can you?
It's a bit difficult. All those stops.
Yes, there are. For an express, it does stop a lot. But I love the train because I nearly always get off at Albury and have a cup of tea and a donut or something.
I think Dennis did, our chef.
Thank you, John.
Greg Norman's luck ran out again in this year's US Masters after fighting back to become equal leader at one stage. The Australian missed making the playoff by just one stroke. The green jacket was won by Britain's Nick Paldo, who defeated American Scott Ho at the second playoff hole.
Kilted 88 champion Sandy Lyle dressed the new title holder.
44 large, 44 long.
43.
43?
Congratulations.
Thanks, Andy.
Leaving the US Masters very much a British affair. Tim Sheridan, Graham Kennedy, coast to coast.
I played around this morning with this brand new, it's a new invention, an unlosable golf ball. It's wonderful. If it goes in the rough, it beeps so that you know where it goes off, and you know where it is. If it gets stuck up a tree, it wriggles loose, a little parachute pops out and floats down. And if it gets into sand, it knows to burrow itself out. Unlosable golf ball.
That sounds great. Where did you get it?
I found it.
The ugly but very useful camel is making a comeback in Egypt.
I rode a camel in Egypt once. We rode all. I didn't know this was so soon. We rode all around the pyramids. Me on the camel, and we rode all around that great big statue thing.
Sphinx.
Oh, dreadfully. No, they're vile. They're very sexy animals. Did you know that? I mean, there's nothing. They are ugly, and as we've said, there's no good end because they've got terrible breath. The other end's not too good. But they are, to another camel, it's fantastic. Well, I mean, that's where the word comes from, you know.
What word?
Humping. Sir Eric Pearce was the top news presenter in Melbourne for many years, and I'm delighted to tell you that he's joined us for this segment tonight. At the other end of...
It's going to be clean, I trust.
Oh, yes.
Good.
Yes. At the other end of the social scale... good old two dogs from Mudgee, sometimes known as Ken Sutcliffe, and he's sports chief of the Nine Network, which, of course, I caused by making him famous.
You did too.
Sir Eric, I've forgotten why you were knighted by the Queen. It couldn't have been for newsreading, because if that were the case, I'd have 3 of my own by now, wouldn't I?
3 what?
Knighthoods.
I'm sorry you didn't take it up. It was a joke.
Oh, was it? Oh, I'm sorry. Are you all right?
Yes, I'm fine.
Your tie's sticking out.
You've killed it, stone
No, I haven't. Oh, you've got it tucked into your belt.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
And I've got braces too, if you must know.
But tell me about... I mean, you were knighted, obviously, for doing extremely demanding, and you worked tirelessly for charity. That's why you got your
I've got no idea.
Oh, really?
It's kept, I don't know, it was called Service to the Community, so...
Well, that's what it was for.
Well, thank you for telling me. I'm so glad.
It's going well.
Oh, it's going very well indeed. I mean, the Queen, when I went over for my knighthood, didn't tell me what it was for.
She just tapped you on the shoulder.
She did.
And here you are, KBE, or whatever it's called. Ken, you did a terrific job at Phillip Island. Did you enjoy it?
It was great fun. You should have come along.
Well, actually, I would have come along, but I lent my Harley-Davidson to Eric for the weekend. Yeah. Two Dogs, you haven't been knighted, have you?
No, I've been in Melbourne for more than a week and I haven't even been dated.
I reckon he's obviously going to the wrong bars.
Definitely. We've never had this many people at the desk before. We have the monarch of the Mediterranean, the Lord of the League, Sir Eric of the media, and I'm Sir Osis of the liver, actually.
May I just interrupt a
You
moment?
certainly may, Sir Eric.
I wonder if you'd be good enough to ask John to speak as his mother speaks.
Dot is in the audience.
Well, I know. And she's a very dear lady. I wonder.
We had the most wonderful night last night. I was with John and his parents and his family, and I was force-fed, truly, for 4.5 hours. We had the most delicious food and the most poured, the most wonderful wine.
But I talked to you yesterday, and you said, well, I shan't be able to ring you later because I'm going out for dinner.
This is with son.
Isn't it boring, you said to me?
I did. Oh, Eric. You see, he does this. He thinks he can get away just because he's had a triple bypass. Eric, that's a terrible thing to say. That's terrible.
This is Mangos. He didn't say it.
He didn't say that. No, well, John might say, what might you say? Because Dot is inclined to call her son...
Why do you call her Dot?
That's her name, Dorothy.
You're a young man. You don't call him...
Dot asked me to call her Dot. Con asked me to call him Con. Really, Eric?
Do you agree with this?
I'll go along with anything.
Eric.
This is a roller coaster.
Eric.
I know it's your show. Yes, all right, go on.
Fair suck of the sav, Eric. Would you kindly introduce the next story?
Yes.
Now, listen. Now, do you remember what to do, Hecky? You look up at the big writing on the thing, and you speak up clearly.
Oh, there?
There.
Got it.
Yes.
Yes,
You okay? Going to be all right with that?
Don't teach your grandmother to suck eggs.
I didn't even know we were related, Eric. Let alone on the Distaff side of the family. Come on. Off you go.
All right. Buckingham Palace has been rocked by a series of scandals, all of a rather intimate nature. The latest involves Her Royal Highness Princess Anne.
Perhaps Princess Anne and the Queen's equerry were only playing Pony Express.
Queen's who?
Equerry. Perhaps they're only playing Pony Express, Eric.
What is the Queen's equerry?
Well, how should it be pronounced?
No, that's right. Go on. But I just wonder, what do you mean by that?
Pony Express. Have you not heard of Pony Express? It's like
meant,
Postman's
what
knock,
is the
only there's
equerry?
more horsing around, Eric. You see, what a big emotional weekend in sport, Kenny.
Yes, Wayne Gardner was in tears, Jeff Fennick was in tears, St Kilda supporters had tears of happiness.
Oh, they did. Yeah, I love it when they cry. I really do. Even our audience tonight is in tears. Have you noticed?
Yeah, they are, actually. There's no rest for the champions. Wayne Gardner is now on his way to America for the next round of the World Championship. He was rather fortunate for the rest of the crowd because they had to have that unbelievable trip back from Phillip Island. Gardner is a humble champion and despite demands on his time, still spared a moment with fans.
Congratulations, Great. You can't withstand it.
Oh, good. I've enjoyed it.
And for Bob Barnard, the man who organised this first World Championship Australian Grand Prix, plans for bigger things.
This sport is just fantastic, and it deserves to be the best in the world, and we're just going to make it the best.
If anything can be improved about the Grand Prix, it's traffic access. It became obvious immediately after yesterday's race that one bridge to Phillip Island is just not enough. Within half an hour, all roads were blocked. And late into the night, things got worse. The 90-minute trip back to Melbourne took as long as 10 hours. Something has to be done before next year. The police lost one of their own. A constable directing traffic was hit by a car. He died later in hospital. Today, motorists had yet another crawl to Melbourne, and back at the circuit, the big clean-up was underway. 100,000 people leave a heck of a mess, but there was still time to talk over yesterday's race. Tent City is now just a memory, and in Cowes, things are slowly getting back to normal. The locals have their town to their own again.
Would you thank my special guests, Sir Eric Pearce and Ken Sutcliffe, for coming in today? Thanks, Kenny. Still to come, could this be the latest in windmill technology? All ahead on Graham Kennedy, Coast to Coast, coming tonight out of Melbourne.
On this day in 1811, the Sydney to Parramatta toll road was completed. It took 21 bullock teams more than a year to finish. It would have been completed earlier, but they kept stopping to look at all the used car yards. On this day in 1960, the Civil Rights Bill passed through the US Congress. The bill provided for the appointment of referees to help blacks register to vote. It was the forerunner to legislation outlawing discrimination on the grounds of race, colour, religion or national origin. Americans became less discriminating, if that's possible. International playboy, actor and bridge player Omar Sharif is 57 today. He wasn't always a Sharif. He started out as a deputy Sharif. He turned to acting, achieving international success in his role in Lawrence of Arabia. He's known for his brooding sex appeal, hence the song, Omar, He's Making Eyes at Me. The good Aussie Sheila has become embroiled in a right royal row, and if one Adelaide entrepreneur has his way, it could be a smelly battle.
It started in London when a company wanted to publicise advertising space at bus stops. Tongue-in-cheek, it invented a poster about a fake product named Sheila, which has since been the subject of media reports like this.
She has all the subtlety of a sledgehammer, from her name and the swagman's cork-ringed hat to the disturbing claim that she also kills flies.
It's a nice gimmick, but down under it's created a bad smell. That's because there really is an Australian-made Sheila perfume, and it's gearing up for a potentially lucrative export market. It's in Japan, Malaysia, and until the UK incident, it was destined for London. Adelaide businessman Emmanuel Fortune says he's talking to lawyers to see what action he can take for some sort of recompense under common law.
The suggestion is that we Australians wear sheep dip under our armpits and use an insecticide as a deodorant. And I mean, let's face it, that's not what we're about.
So what is his real Sheila supposed to be all about?
Very elegant and superb.
But all said and done, there remains that nagging question, can the real Sheila kill flies?
Even if they swim in it, I guess they would die, yes.
Despite fears he may have lost short-term prospects in the UK, he's hoping Sheila be right.
Oh, a little joke there, I think.
I think so.
I've got an island to pronounce which I haven't heard of before. Pour on the grill. That's sad. I mean, there aren't many islands left where the natives still live a simple, uncomplicated life, unspoiled by civilization and modern conveniences. Except for Tasmania, of course, but that's who's sorry now, little Tasmanians? Tasmanian foreplay, are you awake, Mum?
Updating tonight's news, and Treasurer Paul Keating is on the offensive over the economy, strongly rejecting banking industry warnings that mortgage rates could hit 18%. Mr Keating is sticking to the government's new wage package, which will be officially announced, or formally announced rather, in Wednesday's economic statement. In Sydney, the Fire Brigade has failed to find the cause of a chemical scare at a Darling Point wharf earlier tonight. 4 workers were taken to hospital after apparently inhaling dust particles near a shipment of sodium-based chemicals. And that's all from the newsroom in Sydney. Now it's back to Melbourne.
Just got to do that. Good morning. Martin Sharp, an inventor from Bendigo, is into windmills.
Graham, when you had a farm,
Yes. at Longwarry.
Longwarry?
Longwarry in Gippsland, yes.
Did you have windmills on your farm?
Only one. We tried running several, but there was only enough wind for one.
The Eaglehawk skyline has changed dramatically just off Eaglehawk Road. 6 windmills now whir and clunk their way through the day. The masterpiece is the gent on the penny farthing, who is actually riding the bike. The weight of the leg going down helps keep the fan spinning, even in the slightest breeze. There's a rowboat, 2 blacksmiths, a lady with a rolling pin, a water gatherer, and the wood chopper. The windmills might stop traffic, but inventor Martin Humphreys hasn't stopped. He's already working on another project.
This is going to be another whirly gig, a merry-go-round one, with children going around.
Where do you get your ideas from?
I don't know, there's so many things that you can do. You can do just about anything you want to.
Martin says he's an economic refugee from Wales, and after 2 years in Australia, he's become a house husband, which gives him more time to tinker with his collection. He doesn't only make windmills, he carves animals from lumps of wood, frogs and eagles mostly, but he likes frogs better. And he makes a few toys along the way.
Yes, well, I felt a bit guilty about making all this junk and having nothing for my daughter to play on, so I've started making her a few things too.
The windmills are his most successful venture, but Martin says he has thousands of ideas.
This is money-making scheme number 10,500. I don't want to sell them now. This is about the only thing that I've made that anybody's want to buy, and I don't want to sell them.
Martin does have a way to make money out of his windmills, set them up in a tea garden, and then let other people pay to enjoy his inventions. Darren Linton, Graham Kennedy, Coast to Coast.
I neglected to thank George Danikian before that for bringing us up to date. I have a friend who invents things. He came up with a terrific thing, a marijuana cigarette. This would be unknown to the crew. A marijuana cigarette with a menthol filter.
What's the purpose of that?
It's so that you can get high and stay cool at the same time. And you spent the last 2 years in LA, you'd be familiar with the cocktail called the Screwdriver that's made out of orange juice and vodka. Well, my friend came up with a mixture of vodka and prune juice.
Did he call that a screwdriver?
No, he called that a pile driver. Then, son...
Yes, Graham.
Yes, Graham, and everything. She's a beautiful man.
Don't break my heart.
Doesn't break my heart. Then he crossed an elephant with a call girl and got a 2-ton pickup that fools around for peanuts. That's not easy to say. We have some phone calls as a result of last Friday's Coast to Coast. A Melbourne lady asks, or says, John has a wonderful smile. He should be in a toothpaste commercial. He is a toothpaste commercial. A gentleman from Illawong asks, why is one of Graham's eyes green and the other blue tonight? Well, what are they tonight? No. It's as if one could be blue and one could be green. It's his set. He hasn't adjusted his set. A Reevesby man says, if my... Oh, this is hideous. If my wife's baby is a boy, we'll call it Graham. And if it's a girl, Grey Wiener. I hope to Christ it's a boy, I'll tell you that. Grey Wiener? A man from Bellevue Hill says, I think Graham's sexual comments are pathetic and uncalled for. So do I. So do I. A Wollongong woman says, we've had a few, since we've had irritation, now what's it called?
Irrigation.
Irrigation.
Irritation.
What is it?
Aggregation.
That's the gation. Since we've had that, we go to a lot of places we don't actually know. And we certainly go to Wollongong, which puts us into Canberra, doesn't it? Because
Correct.
Because of the vast resources of Alan Bond. For the moment. We do our own bleeps, oh yes. A lady from Maroubra says, Graham has a great voice. Can he sing some more? All right, I will. A 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5. Being a chum is fun, that is why I'm one. Always smiling, always gay, chummy at work and chummy at play. Laugh away your worries, don't be sad or glum, and everyone will know that you're a chum, chum, chum. Good work. No doubt. And now, the finance report, which could be, the finance report could be compared to a male pig.
That's a bore.
So's the finance report.
Wednesday's budget has had a calming effect on the All Ordinaries. They closed less than 1/4 of a point down. The Nikkei Dow and the FT100 both lost. The Australian dollar is trading at 80.50 US cents, and gold is marginally up.
I'm sorry, you caught me right in the middle of looking at myself. I am terribly sorry. I really didn't know. Yeah, well, how boring. So a lot of neighbours are boring. I've got it on the other hand. I have a very interesting neighbour. I think you know, the one who does her housework in the nude.
Just a minute. I've been to your place, and you can't see into your neighbour's house.
You can if you stand on top of the wardrobe. Sure. No, you can. Terrific. We didn't talk about the football. The opening of the show tonight, you saw, I hope, we couldn't see it, there should have been the St Kilda emblem. Right. Then there should have been Tony Lockett kicking that fantastic goal in the last 30 seconds. Then it should have been Fitzroy, because John barracks for Fitzroy. We didn't know. When we knew we were coming down to GTV to do some programs, the nice manager here said, would you come to the football? And we thought, oh, yes, because it's St Kilda playing Fitzroy. Not knowing that it would be the match of the day, because I'm sure it will be.
But it is.
It is the match of the day. Yes. St Kilda.
It's a preview of the premiership.
Oh, it's amazing.
Not only are the Proclaimers on their way, they've arrived. Today they were spotted in Adelaide's Rundle Mall, the hub of the city's busking fraternity.
I'm told the Proclaimers are the biggest thing to come out of Scotland since haggis. When I joined hundreds of eager autograph hunters at CC City Store, I was confronted by a pair of clean-cut, identical twins with glasses thicker than Roy Orbison's and Scottish accents just as thick. Nothing like I expected of a duo who've reached the top of the charts.
I'm Sally. And what's your name? I'm Craig.
The Bonnie lads were unknown in Australia a few months ago, but they now have a loyal following down under, and it's growing. The identical twins are from, pardon my accent, Octomukti, a little Scottish town in the county of Fife, and their fans still hard at it, with no sign of writer's cramp. You don't need a third person in your act, do you?
No, I don't think so. No, I've got a tour manager that looks exactly like you, but maybe not quite as good a singer.
Well, I'm a pretty good singer, and I'm a
well, if you're a good singer, you definitely can't be in the clap dancer.
Oh, well, never mind. Can I get you just to sign your autograph for me?
Yes.
And now the weather. The monsoon that was forecast to hit Gympie tomorrow will actually arrive this evening, several hours sooner than expected.
Alice Springs fine and 31, 32 in Storms for Darwin, Perth fine and 26, some showers in Adelaide 20, 18 in Hobart and mainly fine, wet and humid for Melbourne 20, 19 in showers in Canberra, some rain for Sydney 22, and Brisbane fine and 27.
No, but isn't it a nice feeling, being back? You're an old GTV fellow, I'm a GTV fellow.
Wonderful feeling.
No, it's not, because everyone's warm and they love us. And what do you want? Oh, it's a late item. I've just been handed a late item by one of our floor managers. We have 2 floor managers. I know that. Has this been checked? Yes. How many sauces? 1! Oh my, oh good grief. Name it.
Mushroom!
What they say?
Mushroom.
No, someone put an S on. Mushroom. In Wollongong, it's about Wollongong again. In Wollongong, a young mother is suing her doctor over the failure of the birth control pill which he prescribed for her. She said it was no good because it kept falling out. Good night.